Jeremy White Podcast. Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The Jeremy White Podcast.
With Bustan. For the best Lebanese cuisine in Montreal, it's got to be Bustan. Visit bustan.ca.
Watch the Jeremy White Podcast exclusively on YouTube.
New album is called No Cover. Does it have a release date yet?
October 2nd is what we are aiming at. And of course, now we've got, some international releases, Japan, we're working out Europe and everything too. So, in this world we live in, everything kind of, hopefully it all comes together and works out on the same date. But, everybody wants to release before the next guy. So we've set October 2nd as the date for us.
Well, that's it. I mean, October 2nd is a good day. So,
yeah. Well, and the idea was we originally had an Ellefson solo record of original material that we were going to put out. And what we decided is it's like, look, if to put that out now and then not be able to tour and support it, it'll just go away. It'll just kind of fall between the cracks. So we thought this cover thing would be fun. And I'll be honest with you, we didn't think that it was going to turn into like a double album, 4-side vinyl. Yeah, it turned out to be a lot more, but it's great. I mean, we ended up, obviously you start digging into your record collection. You're like, hey, what about this one? Hey, what about that one?
Right.
So it all worked out.
That makes total sense. So so this one's going to be all covers. So so first of all, I like the title of the album, No Cover. Is that kind of like an homage, like as if like I'm going to a bar or something and no cover charge? It's
exactly what, especially in this day and age. Hey, no cover, come on in, We're just glad to be open. Come on in. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, through this pandemic, it's like all the bars and stuff where a lot of bands would usually kind of start out at, or, they're slowly declining and they start playing at again. It's
That's exactly it.
We need to see if any of them are still around once this whole thing is done.
Whew, I know a lot of places, they say they're not going to be able to keep their doors open, So, yeah, I mean, look, for us, we at least need to keep it as fan friendly as we can, so because we're all in it together, None of us can go away. We all gotta, all boats rise, as they say,
Well, that's it. So with this album, how did you come up with the track listing? Are you going back to like your teen years when you were first getting into bands and you first started playing? You're like, these are the songs that got me into music. I want to record them, do my own versions.
It's exactly what it is. And I mean, I had just come home from Nashville. So this was early June. I just laid down we'd done the bass and drum tracks, basic tracks for the Megadeth album. With the Ellefson solo band, we had just put out the Post Malone track Over Now. We had a song called Simple Truth that we had put out in April. And, we were aiming towards, again, this Ellefson record that would be these original songs. So, we're pretty deep in recording and writing and everything. But, when I came home from Nashville in June, the reality hit me, and Thom is just like, look, it makes no sense to put out this record that we've been working so hard on, this original material. There's a record of original material. It requires a certain setup. There's kind of some nuances because these are new songs and people have never heard them. So, there's a timeline of how long it sort of takes to push it out and get it in people's ears. And, thank you for your support to us with doing that with radio.
Yeah. Well, Mitch was the one that sent me, he's like, dude, you got to check out this cover. And so I listened, I'm like, this is insane. Like, how did you, so first of all, out of all the Post Malone tracks, like, I was like, how come not Better Now? How come not Congratulations? Like, why is that Post Malone song?
I think Over Now spoke to Tom's life. I think it spoke to it's good for his, I think it's good for his romantic aptitude, so I think it worked for him. It's funny because you brought it up to me last year. We were on tour. And, of course, Post Malone's big in my house. My wife, my daughter listen to it. And so,
are you super familiar with him, or do you know the discography?
I am. In fact, Thom called me. It was earlier last year in 2019. That's what he said. He goes, dude, there's this guy, man. He's on the charts. He's got like more songs on the chart at one time than the Beatles did. He's got more number ones, all this stuff. And he's got a Megadeth tattoo on his elbow, and I'm like, wow, really, no kidding. So that's what kind of got me into it, and I got to be honest with you, my kids keep my ear hip. My son's into like really old like classic rock stuff, which I love because as a dude we get dude rock time, and my daughter, of course, she's into like kind of more hipper, like what's happening today kind of music. So I get both sides of the spectrum there. And of course, the first thing I noticed when I really started to get into it is that he's just got a great sound, and and a leader of a sound. And I always
Yeah.
say, man, as an artist, if you can create a sound, that is probably the hardest thing to really create, because it defines you. It defines you not only now but forever.
Yes.
Whether it's Kenny G, Post Malone, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, whoever, as soon as you hear it, you go, "Oh my God, that's them." That is. It sounds so easy, but it's a really challenging thing to do. And Post has that. So,
Yeah.
and I like his sound. Like I said, it's kind of like a modern day Barry White, but dropping a lot of F-bombs,
Yeah, totally. And smoking a lot more weed. And
Yeah. But he's got this soothing, calming sound, and which is very, especially for, I think, probably a millennial generation, which is all kind of TikTok and point and click and this very kind of short attention span sort of, lifestyle that they have. I found Post's music to be very calming, in that age group, and it I don't know, it appealed to me. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to songs like "Congratulations" and then you listen to "Better Now," or right now one of the biggest songs that we play on a radio station is "Circles." And the crazy thing is that from the fans that know him from the hip hop kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden you could play that song just on acoustic guitar. Run away while we're running circles. Like it could be like a campfire song.
Yes, exactly. And again, obviously to collaborate with Ozzy. Look, he's a rocker, and now we've gotten to know, Thom and I have become, friends with Post and with his dad. And his dad is my age, so got Post into, all the metal stuff, Metallica and Pantera, Megadeth and all this stuff, and Post is, he's a good guitar player. He's got real chops.
He did that live stream on YouTube not too long ago where they just covered total Nirvana. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's amazing.
I love that. And I love the diversity, it's funny in this day and age, and especially I think in that age group and what everything that's going on around it in the music business is it's hard to just really kind of stay in one path. And the fact that Post he pivots very quickly. He's able to say, I'm into this, I'm into Nirvana, I'm into this, I'm into metal. And his fans will follow that. The genre and the generation I grew up in, they would not support that. It's like if you said you were anything but metal, it's like you were crucified at the stake. So
it's funny because
I like it.
I was just on Twitter literally yesterday, and I posted this tweet, and I said, "What if I told you that you're allowed to like more than one genre of music, and you don't have to be a prick to people that are?"
No way, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I put that up there, and people are like, I totally agree. I can go from ABBA to Zappa, and I like it all.
Yeah.
You're allowed.
And in of course my generation growing up, these some fans made this decision, but to Megadeth or Metallica, it's like, why not both? I have both in my record collection, and I'm in one of the bands. So it's I know it is. And a lot of times people would ask, they go, what is the one record we wouldn't expect you to listen to? And it could be anything from a Christian record to a hip hop record to a country record, to all kinds of stuff. I listen to like the Garth Brooks channel sometimes on Sirius Radio. I've been driving back and forth to California a bit over the summer.
Great catalog.
And really, I mean, it's funny in Phoenix where I live, there's a couple of really big tastemaker country stations. And in the late 90s, Megadeth started going down to Nashville to make some records. And so that was the beginning of the whole Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks, Shania Twain, that whole forward-thinking country thing. And our producer, Dan Huff.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that.
On those records,
I wanted to ask you about working with Dan Huff on Risk, because that guy played on Shania Twain's Come On Over. And it's the biggest selling album from a female artist of all time, and the guitar licks that he's playing on there, but also he was one of the biggest session guys ever from the stuff in the 80s and playing with Giant. What was it like going from being in Megadeth and writing these Megadeth songs to going into the studio and working with somebody like Dan Huff, who comes from a session background where he basically plays everything? Does that open up the gates to just instant creativity?
Oh, for sure. I mean, so we did 2 records with him. We did Cryptic Writings, and we cut that record in '96.
Right.
And then we did the Risk album, which was kind of about half written in the studio. We did that in 1999. And I think with the Cryptic Writings record, because we went into it with a full arsenal of songs. We had 16 songs written. We narrowed it down to the 11 for the record, another bonus track or 2. So we really had the material done when we got there. So I in my opinion, that record probably processed better during the recording process. But there's one song on there, The Disintegrators. Like, we were playing it over at the rehearsal hall before we went to the studio, and Dan was laughing his head off. He couldn't stop laughing. He goes, "Oh my God, man, y'all that man, dang, y'all, that's a one hell of a guitar rick right there. And we were like, you realize that's going on the record. He's like, oh, no way, man. And Dad's so sweet with his Southern accent.
Yeah.
But, so it was fun that, because we looked up to him, obviously, as this amazing guitar player. And
Right.
the fact that he was looking at us going, man, you guys are freaking amazing. And it was a time because, metal wasn't recording in Nashville at that time. So it was a moment where I think we earned the respect of Nashville, and they welcomed us in. The fact that we're working with Dann Huff, they immediately went, look, if Dan's working with this band Megadeth, these thrashers, if
these rock and roll folk,
these rock and rollers, if he's working with them, then it must be good. And so it was a great way to come into town and earn respect, to win over respect, because let's face it, if you're in Nashville and you're making records, you can play, so.
Well, that's it. And, to be fair, I think Mutt Lange kind of opened up the door for other rockers to come into Nashville as well. Because, with this work that he did on The Woman and Me, and I think that's where, Dan had worked with Mutt on Come On Over first. I don't think he played on The Woman and Me.
Yeah. Well,
did Dan ever talk about Mutt Lange and his experience with Mutt? Or, yeah.
I mean, especially me and Marty Friedman, we were like, what was it like working with him? And he just said, man, he was so... He said he'd walk around the studio with an acoustic guitar, like singing Everly Brothers songs. So like Mutt is a real music guy. He's a real song guy. And he just said, his attention to detail in his ear was so incredible. Because there are times, when you're recording these records, where you're trying to get a part just right. And they're like, it's a little head, a little behind. Try one more time. Put a little more attitude on it. No, don't hit the string so hard. So you'll do a part sometimes 8, 9, 10 times to get it just perfect, right? and we were like, okay, Dan, what was this like working with Mutt Lange? It's like he's like the Uber version of this. And he goes, man, some days I just pick a point on the wall and just stare at it and just play the lick over and over and over again until I got it right. But I had a conversation with Elliot Easton from the Cars, and they had done a record, at least one record. Yeah. And I asked him what it was like to work with Mutt, and he really said it great. He goes, man, Mutt got me right down inside of the hi-hat. Like he really tightened up my playing. And and I know what he means, like as far as real, because Dan Huff did that, I think, for me, and I think for Megadeth too. He got us really playing behind the beat, got our real attention to groove, because Dan would tell these stories about how he'd been asked to join Whitesnake, but he passed it up because he was already making a great living making records, and he didn't really want to be on the road. That's why Giant went away, his band Giant that he had, right? Because he didn't really want to. He just said, he goes, man, I just knew being a rock star wasn't for me. I grew up in my bedroom playing guitar, listening to the snare drum, and he just said, man, I knew I was a studio guy. That was my calling in life. So
yeah,
God bless him that he was decisive and he knew his path in life.
And it worked out. I mean, at the end of the day, geez, dude's a freaking legend.
I'd say, right? Yeah.
Hey, I just noticed Thom joined. I'm going to let him in here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, there you go.
It just popped up on my screen. I wonder if he was able to hear us the whole time or not. He's just sitting there in the queue. And
sitting in the queue. Let's bring him in and see what he's doing.
Thom, you there?
He was just telling me. I don't know if he's...
Yeah, connecting to audio, it says.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
There's always technical challenges here.
Yeah.
So,
it happens.
Yeah. Right. Well, Tom's here now, so I guess we could talk about No Cover more in depth.
We can.
By the way, how the hell are you doing, man? Like, what's going on with your health? Are you all right?
I'm awesome. How are you? I just finished a record with 19 songs on it. I mean, I'd say I'm pretty damn good.
Well, dude, I'd be going in cardiac arrest too if I was having to cut 19 songs. And how many days did you do it?
I don't know. Not many. I think collectively, I went back to the studio 3 times. I think collectively it was like 5 days, maybe. Not even 4 or 5 days. It was pretty marathon. It was funny because when we were doing it, like I'd be at my hotel the night before I had to go in the studio, and me and David would talk. Be like, oh my God, David would come and go, we should do this song. Then Andy would map it out. And the next day I'd be tracking vocals for it. So it's a pretty whirlwind experience for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of fast turnaround. How long did it take for the entire record, like from start to finish? Because Dave, you were saying that, you kind of had the idea of this and then that, and then it turned into this covers album.
Well, the conversation that Thom and I had just gotten home from Nashville there. That was early June. And then we just started the conversation and it was like, let's do some covers. And I don't know, I think we probably came up with a half a dozen of them pretty quickly. But, we didn't go for like let's just kind of do Judas Priest, Breaking the Law, and Kiss, Cold Gin, and what I call the bar standards, right? Which we've all played a million times, and they're awesome songs.
Yeah.
But we wanted this record to have depth. We wanted it to reflect me and Tom's upbringing and the music and the songs that we were raised on. And as we started calling in our friends like Doro, of course, we got her to sing on Sheer Heart Attack, as well as Love Me Like a Reptile by Motorhead. And she was good friends with Lemmy. And so she loved that we weren't doing, just Ace of Spades or probably one of the more typical Motorhead songs. We were going for a deep album cut. And me and my friend Greg Handevitt, who I grew up with in high school, we used to play that song in our teenage bands back in Minnesota. So I called him and said, hey, do you want to sing and play on a song with Doro and Thom on a Motorhead track, revisit something from when we were 15. And so, a lot of this was, first of all, it was about great songs. It was equally as much about great friendships with everybody who participated on this thing. And, getting some new guys in like Brandon from Crowbot, collaborating with some of those people, but Jason McMaster, who's been a longtime friend with Thom, a big Megadeth fan, and Charlie Benante, Dave McClain. Of course, we got Dirk Verburen, who currently is in Megadeth, with me to play on some stuff. So it's really, and Bumblefoot is just, Bumblefoot is just, he's a jukebox. You put a quarter in the guy and you just let him go.
It's like, hey, play this. I mean, he is. He's ridiculous. Like, I've literally done that with him. I've just sat and been like, okay, play this. And they go, and he does.
The guy goes, that was the last concert I saw before the whole lockdown, Sons of Apollo in Montreal, and it was just awesome. Crazy.
Well, but yeah, so the funny thing to what we were just talking about is, it's just a couple of these covers. Originally, we had the conversation of, just recording some covers for fun to kind of use as Japanese B-sides and kind of just have some extra stuff in the tank, and like some of this, like the Billy Idol song, that conversation started last year when we were on tour in Italy. I literally remember me, Andy, and Paulo, our drummer, sitting in front of our hotel in Italy going, man, we should do a Billy Idol song. And then we were going through the list, White Wedding, whatever. And then we ended up doing Rebel Yell. So, some of the initial conversation went back. And then, sometime in June, me and David got on a call and we were kind of figuring out our plans with the pandemic and sort of mapping out our next year with what we're doing in Megadeth. And we had a bunch of touring this year that, Australia, Japan, and Europe, and some U.S. stuff that all get kind of put. So we were kind of, recalibrating our plan, and we were both kind of, God, let's just do a cover record. Yeah, that was in the middle of June, and now September 1st is completely done, mastered in manufacturing. So yeah, like 2.5 months, I think, start to finish.
That's not bad. And I mean, the fact that with the whole lockdown, everybody's out there doing covers online, everybody's doing the isolation jams, the fact that you're turning it into an actual album, I think it's kind of smart business-wise.
Oh, we just wanted to take it to the next level, and we didn't want it to be just another quarantine jam. And again, I mean, look, if you think about the time frame, me and David talk about this all the time. Like, imagine trying to make a record of this caliber 20 years ago with the quality. And I mean, literally, there's 30 guests on this thing. Al Jorgensen from Ministry, Charlie Benante, Frank and Troy from Tesla, Mark Slaughter, Jacob Bunton, who sings for Mick Mars and his solo band now. I mean, Russ Parrish from Steel Panther, Doro, Dirk, Dave McClain. I mean, there's so many amazing guests on this record, and just how we recorded. I mean, again, like 20 years ago, it cost us $2 million to make this record,
Right. So it's our heavy metal We Are the World without the $2 million.
Right.
Well, that's it. Weren't you guys doing like a crowdfunding thing for the album too? Is that still going on, or?
It is. It ends in 3 days. We have an Indiegogo up with. We have a couple cool experiences. We have one that's called Roadie for a Day, where they can come and hang out with me and David at a show. And a lot of it's just like there's some pre-orders. You can pre-order the record. There's a couple special perks, cool little Sinister guitar picks, made us some cool picks.
Nice.
With kind of some of the, So yeah, we have an Indiegogo, and we're over halfway to our goal. And, we've raised like, again, a pretty good chunk and done a bunch of pre-orders. And yeah, it ends in 3 days. You can find that on David's page. If you look at David's Facebook, I mean, there's a bunch of links to it and stuff. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. You're doing the crowdfunding thing. So how do you go about getting these artists to jump on the tracks with you? Like, do you have to go and pay like Russ from Steel Panther and say, hey, what's your session rate? Come and hop on this album with us. Or is it like a buddy thing? It's like a pro bono kind of, we're friends.
It was a bro thing.
It is. Yeah, it was a bro thing. And, and it's funny. There's certain people And no one here is obviously here to take advantage of anything. You know, a couple people did ask. We said, look, we got a lot of heavy lifting because we got some manufacturing costs and promo and stuff. I said, look, if they're actually ever I'm glad to share the wealth with you. But it really, like you see with the Indiegogo, it's very DIY. I mean, we are approaching this not as like a bunch of famous rock stars walking around to, you know, Warner Brothers with a big fat check, but this is just a real DIY thing. Yeah. And everything's closed down. So it really is just a goodwill and a good friend thing. And quite honestly, everybody was so gracious to just wanted to just play on something, you know, to just go do something because everybody's at home and their tours are canceled. And, you know, it's better any day. I think we can have our guitars in our hands and be playing and singing is better than not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other killer that people don't really think of on a record like this, we have to license all of these songs. I mean, it's all basically a 5-figure endeavor just to license all these songs. So again, it's not a big, look, some of the guys, we paid their engineers a little bit to track it. But again, it was really just us kind of hitting up our friends and going, dude, you want to play on this? And it was really just a fun, cool, nobody was really about money. We didn't really do it for money. I mean, again, it's like, you know, it'd be a miracle if we even make back what we spent, you know, between the manufacturing and everything else, you know?
No, totally. I mean, that totally makes sense to me. So, hey, that's awesome. So these songs, you know, talking about licensing the songs, was that a big process? Like, did you have to, or was it?
No, there's actually a company called Easy Song Licensing that are amazing that I use. I used to do it all originally just through the Harry Fox agency directly. And then I had one that I couldn't get through there. So I discovered this great company called Easy Song Licensing, giving away a trade secret. And yeah, look, I mean, it was a delight. It was super easy. They kind of do all the heavy lifting and it was great. And they actually have people you can call. I literally there's been a couple times during this process where I called them and they explained certain licensing things to me and certain rights things. And yeah, they're a great so no, it really was, you know, thanks to them, it's really an easy turnkey process. It's just expensive. You know what I mean? Like every song is average, you know, $300 to $700 per song. And there's 19 songs on the record. So do the math, you know?
Well, that did. Hey, just to go back to the little Mutt Lange conversation we had, Dave, you know, you guys ended up covering Wasted by Def Leppard. Why not a Pyromania song? Why not a Hysteria song?
You know, it's interesting. So first of all, I when I was living in Minnesota and my band, that my friend Greg Handevitt, who's on the Motorhead track with me, with us, our drummer walked in the door. There were several records right around that time. Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath, Scorpions' Love Drive, and that Def Leppard record. Walked in the door of the rehearsal room, and our drummer was so excited because he goes, dude, these guys are like teenagers. In fact, I think Rick Allen, the drummer, is only 16. And I got to be honest with you, that record made everything that I then was able to do in my professional career seem like it was within reach of me because they were really young. They made this great metal record. And you know, that to me was the downbeat of that. And it still to this day is my favorite Def Leppard record. And, you know, of course, I love High and Dry. You know, here's the funny thing. When I moved to LA in 1983, and then I meet Dave and we start Megadeth a few weeks later, you know, I first of all, I became very poor very quickly. I grew up pretty comfortable, you know, in the farming community. I realized how good I had it. And not that
like, oh, shit, I'm on my own. I got bills now.
Oh, my God. And I never called home for money, man. I mean, I could have. My dad said, like, and I said, no, I gotta learn how to make this work on my own. This is grow up time. And, you know, so I immediately moved to Hollywood and I forego going to Musicians Institute. I meet Dave. We start Megadeth and straight into destitute, homeless poverty. Literally for like 3 or 4 years, almost 5 years. And you know, I quit buying records. I heard, but quite honestly, LA radio was so good with KLOS and KMET. And they had these great metal hours, you know, midnight, Samantha Fox would have this metal hour that they would play. I remember hearing, you know, Queen of the Reich by Queensryche, the new Warrior album. We eventually got Mechanics and Love to Death by Megadeth on that. And
also top radio at the time was freaking awesome too, because you had bands like Billy Idol and you know, you actually had guitars in the top 40, whereas today it's just all electronic dance.
So by the time Pyromania was coming out, probably Maiden, you know, Peace of Mind had just come out, and that was the first Maiden record I didn't buy. You know, so I'm kind of a Maiden guy up through Number of the Beast. Of course, I loved records after that, and we toured with them, so you know I paid attention, of course. But like the Fastway track was all over radio. You know, Wasp had just gotten signed to Capitol Records. Rod Smallwood, managing Iron Maiden, was just starting to manage them. So, you know, I became much more of a guy on the inside of the industry, you know, being on the inside then at that point. And I became less of sort of the fan on the outside buying the records. And it you know, so it changed my whole scope of everything. And so, you know, so again, I didn't buy Pyromania. I didn't buy Peace of Mind and Power Slave and, you know, and the Dio records. I didn't buy those. You know, I didn't buy those as a fan. I was now a professional, you know, writing my own songs. And quite honestly, you know, Dave and I, we kind of lived in our own little bubble, which I found very advantageous when you're starting a band, especially one that would have its own voice, its own signature sound, and was very focused on writing our material. You almost didn't want to be too influenced by outside stuff.
Yeah.
And we kind of almost needed a full, you know, the full lockdown, you know, to just really kind of almost insulate yourself from being too influenced by outside stuff.
I mean, that makes total sense to me. At the end of the day, you didn't want a Megadeth record to sound like a Photograph or something.
Exactly.
At the time, you know, I was just talking to Steve Stevens about this. He was my guest last week, and he was saying that I said to him how every record today basically sounds the same. Everyone's using the same plugins. Everyone's using the same guitar virtual amps, the same drum plugins. Whereas, you know, back in the day, everybody had to kind of find, and he said it best, you had to find your voice through your instrument. So whether that was your snare drum sounding like a cannonball, or it sounded like a wet phone book getting hit with a drumstick, or you know, your guitar sounding super processed with different effects. It's like you needed to create a sonic image where people heard, and then they went, here's an
interesting take on that. You know, we made a couple of Megadeth records with Johnny K, and I'm a big fan of his production work, especially stuff that he did with Disturbed, and then he went on and did some stuff with Stained and Pop Evil, of course. But, you know, he and I were talking about where he began. And he said, he goes, look, I just had my Soundcraft mixer. I was making records on my little, 16-channel board in my basement in Chicago. He became friends with the Disturbed guys, so they hired him to make the first couple Disturbed records. And, you know, he said, he goes, the problem with a lot of the modern day guys is they're basically computer guys who make records in their computers.
Yeah.
He goes, my generation, which of course I would be of that as well, because I bought and owned PA systems and learned how to mix and everything. You know, we really it was always about the music, and the gear was outside the box. So it's a very different approach. And I completely agree with you. The 2000s, in my opinion, 2000s to modern day, a lot of these records, especially metal records, they were made very loud. They would just sort of splat the dynamics up against the wall. There just wasn't much left for dynamics. And on this particular record, it's funny you mentioned that, because as we started mixing it, the first couple mixes came back, and I really wanted to define the Ellefson band sound, number one, because we were already starting to develop it with Over Now and Simple Truth, and you know,
and
so
it's
this year
big production. It sounds incredible.
It is big production, and we want real breath to the drums. We want real, and these are real drummers. These are some of the best drummers in the rock and metal genre playing on this no cover record. And I don't want to just make everything sound generic, lock it to the grid and splat it against the wall. Yeah. I want Dave Lombardo to breathe. I want Charlie Benante's, the dynamics of how he plays so well with himself inside the kit. I want you to hear that, you know, that because there's a dynamic there, and I don't want that to get lost. And I think it really, you know, our friends from Dead by Wednesday brought in the track, the Crocus song, Eat the Rich. And that was the one song that we had to work a little bit with to make sure that it fit in with the dynamic. And I had a conversation with them about it, and they immediately got it. They said, listen, we're not drop tuning this stuff. We're not trying to out metal the next guy. I said, this is a record that is staying very true to the original compositions, because a lot of these guys, Randy Bachman, Brian May, these guys are buddies of mine. Like, I know them. I've performed with them. I've become professional friends with them. So when they hear these records, these songs, I don't want them to discount it like, what a bunch of blokes just destroying our songs.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't want Brian May going like, bloody hell, what the fuck was that, mate?
I remember Johnny Rotten said that when Megadeth covered Anarchy in the UK. And we had Steve Jones playing on it, like a real Sex Pistol playing on the track. And I remember Johnny kind of made some comment where he kind of discounted it. And I think it was because we didn't sing the lyric exactly the way he sang. We changed a couple words, and he sort of made some kind of off-color remark. And I remember we were very bummed, like, oh man, like Johnny's a freaking hero, you know, and he didn't like it. Like, what's up? And you know, So it's, you know, it's important, I think, on something like this that it rocks our world. But it look, these authors, because people have covered our songs, they've covered Megadeth songs, and we watch a lot of people do playthroughs of Simple Truth, and you know, you sit back as the composer and the author of these songs, and you watch people play them, and for me, what I first go to is, okay, you played the notes right, that's fine, but did you really grasp the narrative of what it is? Did you really get inside the song? Because that's a whole other level of really understanding the heart center of a track, you know? And I think that's what we tried to do with Over Now, is it wasn't just, let's just put some metal guitars on it and we'll just
let's metal the fucker up. You know?
Yeah. We were
I hate guys that are like
that,
by the way, like the super like, you know, like straightforward, just metal. Oh, you listen to Shy Trade? Oh, that's fucking gay, bro. Like, what's wrong with you? You know, like the super bro-y bro kind of. I refer to them as bro metal guys because they're just so stuck up, like stuck in their ways. Anything outside of metal, it's just wrong. You can't do that. You know?
Yeah. So I think on this whole record, we really paid attention to that, and it was very important that the notes be played right. And it was fun for me, you know, to really, I kind of assumed that role. Thom certainly did on the vocal side, and I did on the musical side, you know, to really make sure we were keeping the real heart center of these songs intact.
Yeah, and we were really in a great sync. Again, you know, the Dead by Wednesday guys brought in a version of Eat the Rich that was super down-tuned and low and modern. We're like, no, did we? And then now it sounds like Brittany Fox. It sounds amazing. It's like just this total ripping 80s metal. Like, it's funny. Now it is one of the more 80s metal traditional sounding songs on the record. It rules. And back to what you're saying about Def Leppard, it's funny because me and David are about 10 years apart in age. So I'm a huge Def Leppard fan, but I love all the records. But to me, it was Pyromania and Hysteria. But, you know, when we came to let's do a Def Leppard song, of course, we wanted to pay homage to kind of the new wave of British heavy metal era Def Leppard that, you know, they just started playing Wasted kind of semi-recently. You know, they never really played it or acknowledged it. And it was such a cool, heavy song. You look, obviously, even the cover of the album is a very strong homage to that album and that period. And again, it's just nothing but love and respect for them as a band. I mean, that me personally as a musician and a singer and just a guy, like Def Leppard is one of my favorite bands. I mean, again, I'm super, you know, and I've worked with Phil and I'm friends with some of those guys and they're all lovely guys. So again, it was, but, you know, Wasted just seemed like an obvious choice, man. I said, let's do a Def Leppard song, and David said, let's do Wasted. That's a done. You know, that was pretty much it.
It's funny having this conversation. I realized Thom started buying records right around the time I stopped buying them. It's funny we can be friends. We're not too bro, you know?
Yeah. No, exactly. I love the fact that you said that, you know, you wanted to do the arrangements of the original songs justice. Whereas, you know, I hear some bands do. There's a radio guy that I know, and he always says, you know, if a band's going to do a cover, well, they should do their own version and they should make the song their own as opposed to just doing a full recreation of what the original recording was. But then I think, well, the reason they're doing a cover is because they're a fan of the original song and they want to perform that song. Why would they try and do something other than the song?
And it's interesting. In Megadeth, we would take that approach. Every time we did a version, we'd sort of speed it up, maybe add a little bit of, you know, Mustaine would add a little snottiness to it because that's his character. You know, you would want to hear... Fine. You'd want to hear some Mustaineisms in the track. That's sort of what made it.
And there's definitely, don't get me wrong, there's definitely some Hazaertisms in these tracks. And again, we did make them our own. It's funny because they sound like us. It sounds like me and David, as David was alluding to, kind of defining that Ellefson sound. But I think a lot of these guys vocally were influences on me, so I can naturally just sing like me, and it kind of just naturally, you know, guys like Lemmy and Mark Storace from Crocus, and you know, a lot of these, and obviously Blackie Lawless from Wasp. They were, even Billy Idol, they were all big vocal influences on me, so they're all kind of right in my natural range. So I just kind of opened my mouth, and it sounds like them, but it's a little heavier, it's a little grittier, it's a little ballsier and modern, but it's still very, you know, traditional to the original arrangements of the songs and the feel, you know, which was kind of the key.
That makes sense. Well, No Cover, it's coming out on October 2nd.
We're still playing. It's so funny. We actually just ended up getting a bunch of deals to distribute the record around the world. So now they're asking us to push it, but we might push it back a couple weeks, but whatever. Okay. If you pre-order, you're still going to get your pre-orders, but just the retail dates might vary sometime in that month around the world, but we'll make an announcement soon. Yeah, that's kind of, So
cool. So it's going to be on CD. You got cassettes. You got the double gatefold LP, or what kind of packaging?
We actually decided against the cassettes only because it was so long that we'd have to do like 3 cassettes. But we have a double vinyl, a double CD. It's a great package. It's also going to come out in Japan and Europe and around the world. So
you're going to have some exclusive Japan tracks I'm going to have to buy the import for?
On this record, no, not really. I mean, there's 19 songs. There's
Come on, make it even number. Make it the 20th Japan exclusive.
Oh, maybe. Import it. The other funny thing we went through is originally I was like, well, we should put Over Now on here. There's actually another cover that we did for the real Ellefson record. That's an older song, but that one's totally a reimagining of it, But so again, we kind of left those off, and those are going to stay on the real record. Again, just to kind of keep this laser focus. Like I love Over Now, and it made sense to put it on here, but then it kind of didn't. It's heavier and it's different and it's kind of more modern, and so I mean, there's a lot of.
This record is just sort of like the straight, stay true to the red, white, and blue freaking classic songs rock. That influence us.
Yeah, very much so. Yep. Yeah, this one's the classic rock one for sure.
So it's going to be a little appetizer to what the main course is of the Ellefson project here.
The Ellefson record is amazing, man. Wait. I mean, this is great, and this is really fun, and I'm excited about it. And David has said to me many times while making No Cover that this is one of the most fun records he's ever made, which is such a huge honor to me. But the real Ellefson record, man, I mean, it's got. I mean, it's really. I think it's just going to be regarded as just a really great classic rock metal record. I'm really, really excited about that, man.
Amazing. Well, you guys have said it all. We're running out of time, but I can't wait for this to come out, and I'm just stoked. It's gonna be freaking awesome.
Well, good, Jeremy. Thanks for your support, brother. We really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Well, you got to pre-order it now. No Cover, Ellefson. It's available. Just go to all your social medias and your website. It's all up there. You can pre-order it on iTunes too, I guess.
Not yet. At some point you'll be able to.
But the best place to go is like the crowdfunding.
You got to keep in mind, we literally just finished the Masters 2 days ago. Well, that's the other thing too. That's the other reason we're kind of thinking about maybe pushing it back. Originally, as you know, I had a fucking heart attack in the middle of making this record. I was out of commission for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? So again, it originally was going to be done earlier, and then just again. So we literally finished this record. We finished the mastering 2 days ago. You know what I mean? Like we literally just got the final masters. So again, that whole my little health incident, kind of just set everything back a few weeks. So that's why we're kind of the other labels and the other territories in Japan and whatnot said, well, could we maybe pull this back a couple of weeks? And I was just like, look, I set that October 2nd street date basically when the week we started recording it. Obviously, we weren't going to have 40 guests on it, and I wasn't going to have a cardiac arrest and get a pacemaker put in and be in the hospital for a couple of weeks. So we're playing with it. The other thing I want to mention, we have 3 shows next month with Saliva and A Killer's Confession in Houston, Slidell, Louisiana, and San Antonio, Texas. You can find those dates all over and on David's pages and my pages. And so if you want to come see us play some of this stuff live, we'll be playing Over Now and Simple Truth live for the first time ever, which is exciting.
Nice. Yep. That's really cool.
The deluxe heart attack edition.
Exactly. Hey, come to see if I live through it. It's like a gladiator.
Dude, that should be on the posters, man. Right? the life or death show.
Like a gladiator arena. I know.
I love it. All right, boys. Well, thanks a lot for taking some time to chat, and we'll have to do this again when the next album comes out. I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, man. See you, buddy.
All right.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
Bye.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you later, guys.